The thing is sure, like somebody buys a product. Well, they not only buy the product, they buy into you. They buy into your solution, they buy into your team, and they buy into what's possible with the product. And a little bit they buy into, well, what is this product gonna say about me? That's really where we built some of the strongest relationships with people that use Hextronics to build something stronger or build something on top of it. And so it's not just like, hey, I'm gonna buy this at the store and then be done. No, this is something that like changes fundamentally how people interact with the world or how even people think about the world. And then they start to go around and be someone evangelists of this new mentality of like, hey guys, there's like the sky up there. We can just always be in the sky looking at the world and understanding what's in the world and managing it and actually changing it and developing it way faster than we could if we were just looking around, sitting around every day. It just fundamentally changes how you think about things.
Hello, I'm Ty Morse. This is my conversation with Curt Lary, the founder of Hextronics. I hope you enjoy.
Okay, so what's the first thing that you remember creating?
First thing that I remember creating, okay, it's so weird that it came to me too quick, but when I was a kid, I liked like Rube Goldberg machines, or like you do one thing over here and it starts a chain reaction of a bunch of things happening. And there was actually one thing in my room, I was worried about people stealing like my Legos or like Hot Wheels, or I had a bunch of Hot Wheels. So I made this little like contraption where, okay, if I was in my bed asleep and then someone came to come in to steal my Hot Wheels, I would like have a little switch by my bed that would like roll like a golf ball or a tennis ball over here to like knock something off, to pull the fan to turn on, and the fan had like a knife attached to one of the blades. So it would spin around and it would cut the string that was holding like a bag of rocks over like over the Hot Wheels. Yeah, that was probably one of the first things, the first like, I don't know, contraptions that I made. I was probably like 7 or something.
Did you make anything else?
Yeah, after that?
Yeah.
Let's see. Yeah, well, I mean, I made a lot of things after that. I don't know, I would always just be making weird little inventions. I mean, I played like Minecraft a ton, so I love like messing around with redstone and things like that. I was never absolutely cracked or anything at it, but I had fun making little things there. I would always make like the most insane setups I could possible, of like if I say had a bunch of friends over and we were all playing like I don't know, like Nintendo 64 or something. I would try to make like the coolest like setup so that we all had like the freaking chips and like the sodas were stacked in the fridge nearby, and like there was a cool projector that was showing on a big screen, and then like after that, if I had like a couple of friends over with monitors or whatever, we would just make the coolest monitor array. So I mean, then I kept building stuff. I don't know if we're gonna get all the way there, but then I went into, so in school I was part of this program called Agents of Change in high school, and it kind of just said, okay, you're a freaking entrepreneur, okay? You're an entrepreneur, go build something that people need or something that helps society. It was kind of like a social entrepreneurship program, and they were telling me all these things while they just sent me into like the wilderness. So they would send me into like the forests, or the mountains of North Carolina, or the swamps of South Florida and the Everglades, or in like the jungles of Quito in Ecuador, or in the Galapagos. And this whole time,
this is when you were in high school?
In high school, yeah. I had to work at a farm for a summer to raise the money to go and join this program. I had to raise like $1,000 or something. So I worked in a farm for a summer, just like shoveling horse crap and planting plants and stuff. And yeah, this whole time they were telling me, all right, you're gonna build something cool for society. I don't know what it is, but figure it out. And so at the end of that program, I ended up building this like bike share program for my town. So I went to school in Miami and Palmetto Bay, and so I built a bike share program for the city of Palmetto Bay for some of the park systems that they had around there. And yeah, I had to like get a bunch of old bikes, fix them up. I worked with the police department and the mayor to get everything put together, and they ended up like giving me a cool like poster or something.
Like a plaque or something?
Yeah, a plaque or something. Yeah, in the middle of City Hall. And of course I thought it was like the biggest moment of my life, but then I look back on it, it's like, yeah, like just kind of a really small like City Hall, like nothing extremely special, but it was special to me, you know?
Yeah.
And then I kept kind of looking for cool stuff to build, making things that made people laugh or want to like take a video of it, or just something so cool that you're like, oh, I can't believe this actually exists. Then I went to Georgia Tech, studied mechanical engineering there, and I went there because of this invention studio that they had. It was one of the now every school has an invention studio with like 30 3D printers or whatever, and all these little maker spaces.
It was like rarer.
But yeah, it was like one of the ones at the time that was the most fleshed out. Like they had everything you would want to need to build stuff. They had a really big like water jet cutter and stuff like that too. So the first thing I made there was this little like it was like a Assassin's Creed blade, but for a pencil. And so you would write with the pencil, and then when you're done, it would like suck into your wrist. And I thought I when it actually worked the first time, I started freaking out. But then I showed some people, and they're like, "Curt, you're an idiot," or like, "This is wacky. Like, this is never going to be useful. You're just going to look like Go-Go Gadget everywhere you go." And I'm like, "Yeah, isn't that the point?" And so then in the social entrepreneurship class, they're like, okay, well, you need to have a customer. You need to have somebody whose problem you're solving. And so I couldn't really find like, okay, I made something cool, but it didn't necessarily solve a problem. It was just like, wow, that's kind of cool. So yeah, of course. So I was in a fraternity, and all of the guys that would go out, like a couple people had like Juuls, like those, the e-cigarettes or whatever, the vape pens. And they would always complain about how, oh, I went out at these bars or was at this party or whatever, and I lost my Juul, dang it, or like, crap. And so I was like, what if you didn't lose your Juul? You know, what if it was with you the whole time? So that's when I converted the pencil sheath to a hidden smoke sleeve, or like a hidden bracelet for a Juul.
Yep.
Yeah, and so then I made it. All my friends thought, okay, this is actually kind of hilarious. I'm going to send this around to everybody I know. And it actually started picking up and like getting wind. We were getting orders from all over. We even sent one, I think, to Thailand. I don't know.
Really?
People had just heard about it out of nowhere. And then, yeah, we ended up actually getting a cease and desist letter from Juul.
Can I ask, what was that like? What was that day like when you get that letter?
It was like Christmas. I don't know. It was like, I was there, they're like, Curt, you're not going to believe what came in the mail. And it's like a letter from like some law firm in California or New York or something. And they said, and I open it up, and it's just like, yeah, cease your operations. Don't keep making this. It like violates this, and this. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. Like, this is hilarious. I took it, I still have it. I put it in a frame, or I have it in one of my books or something. And I was like, you know what? I don't really want to do this for the rest of my life, but this is a great reason to stop. And it was a great journey. And I did learn a lot at the end. When like my final prototype, like when you let go of the Juul, it would actually charge on your wrist. You had like a couple of batteries here, and the contacts would make connection once it like reeled back in. So it was like one of those like badge holders, and that tied on to the end of the...
So it was like somewhat functional.
Oh, it was hyper functional.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So I would actually be really curious, how do you like go through the process of deciding what to work on? Because you've built a bunch of different things. And so what is your like mental framework or thought process for doing that, deciding what to work on?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's infinite things to work on, and it's kind of like, well, what's something I can work on, and just getting started is like, okay, what's something I can work on and have it done at the end of the week or in 2 weeks, because that's about as long as my attention span was back then. If a project took longer than that, I'd be like, it's impossible. I can't do it. I'm gonna go play video games or something. And it's kind of just like the first thing I got started was like, you know what? I actually had this revelation. I was in a shower one day. So I was in a shower at Georgia Tech. They had like these honeycomb showers, and like it was meant for a bunch of people to shower together, but not like that, but with like a bunch of tarps in between them. And you could pull the tarps back and like rearrange them or whatever. And so it was really late one night, and I was just like, I don't know, I was just like, couldn't sleep. And I went in the shower, I aimed all of the shower heads at me, moved away all of the tarps, and just had one super shower. And I'll never forget this moment. I was in the shower and I just said like, you know what? Like, I've got two options. I could like be somebody or not be somebody. And if I'm gonna be somebody, it's gonna be freaking crazy. Like, there's no way that I'm just gonna like not give it everything that I've got. And so, I don't know, it was a weird switch flipped in me after that moment. And I was just like, well, like if I was somebody cool, what the hell would I do? You know, if I was like this crazy inventor, what would I make? It's like, well, what about a freaking cool little pencil trick or whatever? So that's when I actually started making that thing.
So your inspiration was like deciding that you were going to be that person in that shower.
Yeah, kind of. It was kind of just like, well, what else? Am I just going to take classes all the time and then just like go back and play games and then go take classes? I'm like, there's no, like that cycle doesn't, it just keeps going. It doesn't go somewhere else. It's like, well, I want to freaking get there.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So that's.
You said the other night, you said that the bike share program, was that sold to the city of Miami?
So the city of Miami adopted it. Yeah. So essentially I got a lot of like the funding from grants from the city. And then we installed the station. And so people had to go check out the bikes. Like it was like $10 an hour or whatever. And then return it. So it was generating revenue. And I think it was only a couple $100 to get, like, I found like 10 bikes that were busted, a couple $100 to fix them all up, get new seats, new gears, whatever, WD-40, everything like that. And then we got them up and running again. And then people were just able to check them out, pay money, and it basically covered its own costs within the first month. And then the city was like, yeah, we're going to want to put this out other places. So they started scaling it. I think they deployed it at about 2 or 3 other parks in the general area, the same idea, the capability to just rent a bike out for $10 or $10 an hour. And this was before when City Bike wasn't everywhere, but City Bike was just getting started. And there was a couple other companies doing something similar in the space. And actually one thing that got me into just realizing that I'm a real person was in that program. I saw these other companies and I saw one really like kind of small one. I think its name was Zagster at the time or something like that. And I was just like, well, if I'm going to build like a bike rental thing, I should probably talk to some people that are doing it now, other places. So I called one up as Curt, as me. I haven't ever just like called a random company and said, hi, I'm trying to start a company. What should I do? You know? And so that's something that got me going of just like, I can just call anyone. Yeah. I can freaking just ask questions to anybody. And either they don't respond or they do respond. And either way,
it's a win-win.
Yeah, win-win.
Yeah, either they don't respond and it doesn't matter, or they do respond and good things are happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So fast forward to college. You designed. I think this is with the first thing that you tried to apply to YC with, but you designed a, what was it? You could like send a plate underneath the ground, like for waiter. Mm-hmm. So what was the inception of waiter?
Yeah. So after the smoke sleeve thing, I went and built a couple other little things here and there, got into electronics, and I just had something like, I wouldn't want a future that's moving. You know, I want a future where there's things going around that's like, oh, it's a little like robot just doing its thing, like in society, not like in some warehouse somewhere where nobody sees it, but just like you're walking around and boom, there's a robot. So I was like, okay, well, I think a cool place to do that, it would be at restaurants because that's going to get people excited. So I was like, all right, we need to make a really cool restaurant experience where things are just moving automatically. And I was like, okay, well, food needs to get from the kitchen to the table. And so the first way I thought about it was like the kitchen puts it in a little tube, and the tube sends it underground, and then it comes up at your table, and then it's there. And I'm like, wow, like that's pretty brilliant. And so I interviewed customers about that idea. So I went to Lenox Mall in Atlanta, and I started talking to these little groups, and I called them ahead of time. I'm like, hey, I'm coming. I need to talk to you for like 20 seconds. Sorry, like maybe 10 minutes. I'm going to interview you for a couple questions I have about how to make food industry more efficient. And they said, okay, I pull up, like, just come along. Like, you're not going to be there when too many people are there, because I came at like off hours or whatever. So I come there, I end up talking to like the people that run these restaurants. I'm like, so how long does it take you like to get a plate from the kitchen to
the table,
to someone's table? And like, I don't know, like a minute. I'm like, oh, a whole minute. And so I keep asking kind of these like self-assuring questions.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so think about this. A network of underground, like little tubes that bring the food right to your table. I'm like, okay, that's great. And then like, how do we clean them? I'm like, yeah, that's going to get really messy. If like one plate of spaghetti falls in somewhere like there, then all these tables now can't eat, and the system's a little bit ruined. So then I kept thinking, I was like, well, there's always like the sky, there's always like the area above, and plus people can see that more, and it's kind of cool, but there is just like a little risk that like you drop something on somebody. But I mean, if it's built right, it probably shouldn't happen. Like, yeah, shouldn't happen too much. And so I built it. So I started off with this little robot. We made it actually in my garage in Miami. I was back home for the summer, and I was like, you know what, let me just cook a little bit and make something cool. And so then I get to it, and it actually is like driving on these little train tracks in the ceiling. And it's like, wow, this actually, like, we made this real. It kind of works. It looks like an abomination, but it kind of works. So then I like kept refining. And then in my apartment in Atlanta, I drilled into the ceiling and installed all of these like train tracks overhead.
Yeah.
Where basically, like, yeah, from like my bathroom, I could deliver something to like the couch or whatever. And it was kind of just to prove it out and test it. And I ended up bringing some videos and some prototypes to like a company that was running the food service for the school for Georgia Tech, Aramark, and they say, and I'm like, come on, we got to have some spot where we can just install this thing. You know, we got to have somewhere, I don't know where, somewhere cool. Like I actually presented like 5 different options of like, you know, we could put it here in this restaurant. This line's always long. Put it right here. This place this place could use some energy. And they're like, all right, this kid's like not going to give up. So they're like, all right, how about here in like the in Tech Tower, like the tower that everybody knows about Georgia Tech. I'm like, okay, let me try. And so then they're like the 2 guys that are running Aramark are like, all right, now you got to go convince like everybody at the school that this is okay. So they're like, all right, now you got to get fire marshal approval, professional structural engineer approval, professional electrical engineer approval, like board sign off from the school. And they thought that this was going to get me like
deterred. Just like you'll stop doing it.
Like, hey, look, there's no way this kid's going to like do all this shit. So like, just put this in front of
a bunch of roadblocks in front of,
And I just kept asking like, okay, and like, that's it? That's all I have to do? And they're like, fuck. They're like, he might actually do this now. So I did it. So I got a structural, I knew this guy's dad who was a structural engineer. I got it approved. I did all of the beam diagrams and everything with the weight load on the whole thing. I got the electrical engineer. I get a whole wiring diagram. And then the electrical engineer then convinced the fire department that like, hey, this thing's probably not going to blow up. And then I had to bring them all. I showed them the diagram, the blueprints, 1940s blueprints of the Georgia Tech Tower. They said like, you need to like show that if you're drilling into these beams, you're not going to compromise the structure. I had to go to the archives of Georgia Tech, pull out these straight up blueprints, unfurl them, find the exact beams that they designed there, and show that like the Tapcon screws or whatever weren't going to compromise it. And they're like, yeah, this math checks out. Like, stop bothering me. Like, this is obviously going to work. So then I come with like my freaking Thanos glove of like all of the stones collected. And they're like, all right, go freaking build it then. And so I did. I did with this guy, Clay Wilson. He was one of the guys in the fraternity with me, an absolute builder, super tank. And we installed the whole thing in like a week. Grant and I slept in this this cafe for almost every day there, and I built a lot of the prototype stuff in the basement of the tower, and then we deployed it, and it was doing like 70 full auto deliveries a day near the end of it. And at that time, I was a little sleep deprived to think about like the actual craziness that I did. But looking back on it, it's just like, yeah, I must have had a screw loose or something.
Powered through.
Yeah, I must have been just absolutely insane. Like I could have been having so much fun doing other stuff, but yeah, it's the only thing. It's like the only thing that kept me awake was to do this, so I had to do it.
Yeah. Right. So you applied for YC the first time with like the prior idea.
Mm-hmm.
How did you feel when you got rejected?
I kind of expected it. I was just like, I'm just like this kid, like here's an idea, guys, maybe you could see that like I'm just this crack kid in like my apartment or in my dorm room making a whole bunch of stuff. And I mean, they probably had a lot better proposals from people that had like business plans and stuff like that. But I was just like, you know what, it's cool. People like a lot of time pay money for cool stuff, especially if it solves a critical problem that makes somewhat of financial sense to do it. And yeah, I just wasn't tremendously experienced, and I was just a little kid. So I can see why they rejected me, and I kind of just did it for fun. Cause I mean, I was like a big, like a YC shill, or such a fan. So I'd watch all of the interviews that they had. And I got accepted to startup school, which is great. Right? Like they would have like a bunch of little meetings with people all around the world, and that was tremendously fun. And it kind of was great because it was like a journey of people that like had no idea what they were going to build, or like, hey, I'm looking for a co-founder, I don't know my idea, or hey, we have an idea, we've been working on it for 2 years, it's not gone anywhere. And like being able to tell my story there, where it's like, yeah, I just freaking built all this stuff, like, and it actually got installed, and we're doing this and that, and this is my next step. And that's when I kind of got some like, I'm like a person, like these people are listening to my story that's like real, and some of them can't believe it. And then I show them the video, and they're like, yeah, freaking kudos, bro.
Yeah, that was just the surprising thing to me, is that when you said that you were like delivering food on the ceiling, that was not what you showed me, was not what I had in mind. It's legitimate. You were actually delivering food using robots on the ceiling. It was awesome. Uh-huh. Yeah. So how did you you went and did the competition at Georgia Tech? How did that work?
Yeah. Oh yeah. So as I'm building this food robot, I was kind of just doing it like for fun. And then there was this program that came along that was the Inventure Prize. It happened every year. I guess I subconsciously was like, oh, it'd be so cool if like I became a part of it. And I did. I like applied, and then they're like, so I think they were a little biased in accepting me because like I actually had a real thing that was installed in Georgia Tech and like actually doing stuff. And if they didn't cover it in this program, if I didn't somehow make it to the finals, then people would just be like, wait, why the heck was this kid not in this show? So they put me in the Inventure Prize, and yeah, so it was like 5 different teams, each solving kind of different problems that normal kind of everyday day-to-day students have, because they're entrepreneurs solving problems of like everyday students that they have. And so I was the solo guy that's just absolutely pulling up to every meeting, every presentation with like 2 hours of sleep. There was one presentation I showed up to where like the cleaning staff, I was late to the presentation because it was like semi-final round or whatever. I'm pitching to like the people running the show, because it was like a process to get in. And so I was late to that because I fell asleep in the cafeteria, and the cleaning ladies woke me up. So yeah, then I got it. I got in, I made it to the final 5, and I was like the most stressed out I've ever been, because it's like, yeah, this is just being published on live TV, and yeah, go tell your story. And so I rehearsed it like crazy, stressed out, and really loved the team that was putting it all together. Stayed in contact with them since then, and it it was just a great moment to tell my story. And it was at a time when, I didn't have like everything business model laid out. I was like, look, if it saves time, it could save money, and you can scale that. Why
did you decide to shut it down?
Well, right after the event happened on live TV, the COVID shut down the entire campus. Literally the next day. It was March 12th or 13th of 2020. Then March 14th or whatever the next day was, the entire campus shut down for the rest of the year, and for the foreseeable future, we were now in like code red. So right at the beginning of the virus, everyone was like, oh my gosh, plastic. Like you touch someone with COVID touches plastic and you touch plastic, you now have COVID. So people are like, well, if like the robot is plastic or some parts of it are plastic, then the robots are spreading COVID. And I'm just like, this is actually a like perfect time to apply this stuff, but nobody wanted to do it. So I just said, all right, I'm just gonna finish my final year of school. And so I took basically like 19 credit, like everything I needed left to graduate, I shoved into that summer, right at the beginning of COVID. And then basically said, you know what, if they're gonna shut down like restaurants and buildings, I don't wanna build a company that can just get shut down by a pandemic. So they can't shut down the sky. So that's when I wanted to get into drones. And little did I know about the FAA at the time.
Yeah, tell me about that.
Yeah, it's a funny thing with the FAA. They don't just arrest you if you like fly beyond visual line of sight immediately, or if you like do something that the FAA, they like smack your hand. They're like, don't do that. It's like, but I didn't like crash into anything or like hurt anybody. And it was my drone like over my like property or my friend's property. Like, what's the big deal? And they're like, And so, I mean, they'll fine you if you're like a large enough organization, of course. And then the people that can really use like fully autonomous drones at scale and buy these machines all around us are these kind of big organizations. So we had to get to the point of, all right, if we're gonna fly beyond visual line of sight, we gotta get everything approved. We gotta build everything so that it can be approved in the national airspace, and that we can report all of the information to a central body, and that all of that stuff's tracked. We've got version numbers, protocols, everything how we build our machines has to be documented and submitted, at least for some level of certification. So yeah, that was definitely a trip and a journey that I didn't really sign up for.
Did you get in trouble with the FAA at all?
So I definitely, this is being recorded, so I definitely have not broken any of the FAA rules.
Rules, of course.
Definitely have not. But one time I was giving a demo to the FAA, and we were like, oh, look at how great, like we've got everything figured out. We've got this drone station. We do like a pre-flight inspection. We take off the drone. It's within visual line of sight with the person. And then halfway through, halfway through the demo, like the drone's in the air, and they're like, do you know what airspace you're flying in right now? And I'm like, yeah, Class D. And they're like, well, you're actually within range of the Air Force base in like a specific time. Did you check the NOTAMs of like if there's like gonna be a big like I don't know, a big like Army aircraft coming in today? And I'm like, no, I didn't check the NOTAM. So the FAA just like roasted me during our initial demo to the FAA.
Did they like force you to fly back or something?
No, they literally were.
They just roasted you.
They just flamed me, and they're like, all right, let's keep going with the demo.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, tell me about like the first month of creating Hextronics.
Yeah, so it's a long story. And so the first month, so basically Hextronics was just an idea in my apartment in Atlanta, right when it was just like an idea, because we were like, I came out of my capstone project that Waiter sponsored this capstone project with like, yeah, we got
with the
like,
money that you got from the prize?
Yeah, from the competition and from like the things
so
funding the competition. Okay. We then sponsored the capstone project, and at the end of the project, we're like, you know what, we want to build a fully automatic drone delivery system that swaps batteries. at the end. Like we thought we could just conquer the universe in this summer. And so we built it. We built like this crazy, like monstrous device that was made of like plywood, 2x4s, a couple linear actuators, and like this weird gripper mechanism. Definitely didn't work at all. At all. I actually should have died building it, because there's a little story. We were like, there's the bird scooters, so I'd always like ride my bird scooter from my apartment to Home Depot and back to like get all the parts.
Would you just be carrying the parts?
Yeah, I would carry like 2x4s or sheets of plywood on the bird scooter with me through Metro Atlanta. There's a couple times I definitely should have died. But yeah, I'm an excellent driver.
Excellent driver.
Yes. And so from there, basically graduated, and I kind of asked the other guys in the capstone, like, hey, do you guys want to go build like a company with this? And they're all just like, no, we have like really high paying jobs at these other companies. So you could go have fun on your own thing. And I'm just like, okay, all right. And so I got really into just calling a bunch of drone service providers, software developers, and whatever, and they all used a particular kind of commercial drones that everybody could buy that were the top performing. And a lot of them said, hey, if you can build a drone station for this drone, then our flights would truly be automatic. Because right now we have to send somebody out there to like manually swap the battery, and then we continue with our autonomous flight. So they said, if you can make a machine that swaps the battery automatically, then we continuously fly, and we'll buy one. So I said, oh, you'll buy one. Because before this, like no one had bought anything other than like some Juul sleeves from me or whatever. And so I start cooking, and I make all these, like this idea of what the thing should look like when it gets all put together. It's like, it's got to look like some box out of the future, and it should have like, I don't know, yellow in it, because yellow is kind of like a drone. And then we got into kind of like, I don't know, my mom and dad are like, what are you going to call this thing? And so I was like standing on the porch one time. I think I was like home for the holidays. And it's like, I think I'm going to call it Hextronics, because it's a little bit like, because hexagons are the bestagon, but hex is like connects everything. It's like the building block of like how molecules come together and make structure. And it's also kind of like magic. It's like a spell, you know, hex, or it's like a curse in some.
So there's three different meanings. Yeah.
Yeah. And then tronics is like the real world electronics, or what make magic into reality, or vice versa. And so we kept going from there, and I actually ended up moving back to Miami because the prices in Miami for sheet metal and prototyping are actually pretty good.
Were they cheaper than Atlanta?
A lot cheaper than Atlanta, almost like 5 times cheaper, just because like there's a place called Hialeah in Miami. It's a magical place. You can basically, like, there's people just building everything, like shipbuilders, like house builders, HVAC, like any kind of system. There's just a bunch of guys from all over trying to make it, and everybody's got their own kind of craft, and they all have different tools to build it. So there's a bunch of people there with water jet cutting machines. And so we met this one guy there. I quoted out at a bunch of spots in Atlanta and a couple industrial sites, like, hey, I want to make a prototype. I need these parts water jet cut. And everyone was like, all right, that'll be like $6,000, and you got to order 100 of them.
Oh.
And then this one guy at a Hialeah flip, he's like, $300. I'll make everything. I'm like, deal, awesome. Dude. Here's the files. Go cut them. And so that's how I I moved back to Miami after I graduated, and in the garage that I grew up in, really started making the prototypes that became real products. And from there, really it just continued to grow into something that I wouldn't have even expected. We made a first product launch kind of officially, the Hextronics Global. It's a legendary system. We tend to we have a conventional naming system for our flagship products that's somewhat celestial. I don't know why. It just felt like I was getting global attention for making something like this. So like we would get people calling me from South Africa, from Saudi, from India, from Malaysia.
So literally just naming the
from
thing.
Mexico.
Global.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
That's awesome.
exactly, because there was global attention and need for this thing. So yeah, it's the global. Yeah, it just kept going from there. We actually made one work, and well, it first used to be like a crazy robot arm that would swap the batteries with computer vision, and it was just extremely over-engineered. And sometimes when I need to like solve a mechanical problem, I just curl up into like a ball, like I just think, or I look like I'm asleep, but I'm really just hunched over in like some weird position.
Thinking really hard.
Thinking about how like all of the things can fit together in different ways, the different axes of motion that can find like variables and dimensions that need to fit into like a really tight space. And we basically redesigned that whole robot arm battery swapping machine that took up a pretty big amount of space into a box about like 3 feet by 3 feet by a foot. And it kind of was like a 3D printer. It would just swap like a little gripper that would swap the battery. And then when the drone was done, it would slide out like an oven. Some people asked me to put like a little ding at the end.
It's like a pizza. It looked like a pizza oven to me. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Can you tell me about, so you've had some really interesting customer stories. Can you tell me about the most interesting, like you actually made the sale, but maybe it was very close to not making a sale, or it was very complex?
There's a lot of stories with interesting customer requirements. I'll just start with some that maybe we couldn't make the sale just because the thing was so interesting. So there's this one group that reached out to us, and they're just like, well, we haven't made the sale yet. I'll say it like that. And so they were saying, okay, we fly the drone for agriculture. We don't need it for pictures too much. We need it for the wind that it produces. So they use the drone actually to artificially pollinate plants. So they fly the drone kind of just down low, maybe like
a few feet off the ground.
6 feet off the ground or so, blow a pretty big wind, and it stirs up the pollen, and it gets all of the plants like
ready.
Yeah, ready to go, or fertilize or whatever. And so that was one where they were just kind of kicking around a few different ideas. Apparently, like the drone didn't like have enough wind or something when it flew. But yeah, there was a few different ones. There's one about this group actually in Ghana. So this is another story. So we've been building this thing for quite some time. I think it was at the end of like 2021, and we've done a few presentation with a couple different people using the global. And suddenly one of the flight software groups puts us in touch with basically the government of Ghana. And they're like, look, we want to use drone in boxes to like protect our protect some critical infrastructure. And it was just like, okay, well, I hope you're ready to get into drone autonomy. And so we shipped the whole unit over there. It was a heck of a process getting through customs and everything. But it got there, they turned it on, and they started flying, and it was incredible. I never thought that we would have, like, I didn't think Ghana was going to be an early adopter for automatic drone systems. But they're actually a great group to work with. And I think there's a couple other things that we're working on together right now. Then there's another customer. So one of our first customers was actually this group out of Saudi. They were using it for construction monitoring. And they actually invited me over there to go give them a demo and show them how everything came together. And during halfway through the demo, so it's like incredibly hot in Saudi. So we had to redesign the whole product to work with some 120 degree Fahrenheit temperatures. So we built basically one of the smallest compressor-based refrigerator units ever, and shoved it in the unit, or artistically put it as a component. And then when we got there, the guys in TSA, because we didn't ship it, we checked it in baggage. So the TSA guys stepped on it or squeezed it and popped one of the tubes. And so we were like, oh my gosh, everything's all together, but the HVAC system's a little busted. So we end up going to like around the corner. Of course, Saudi has a bunch of HVAC guys because it's always hot there. So then we get there, these guys in basically like a small little hut in some regard, and they take a couple looks at it, they like touch it, and they're saying, oh my gosh, I've never seen something like this before, but I think I know the problem. Go get lunch or whatever and come back in 30 minutes. And within 30 minutes, the thing's cooking way better than when I initially had it shipped over. And it was one of the highest performing systems that we've made for the global. And yeah, then it came together. We had like a 50-degree temperature differential just when it was like outside in the heat, and it felt really good. And I was like kind of powerless, just completely away from my environment back home. Then there's been some sales or some deals that have been like right on the line, because we've been bootstrapping for quite some time out of the garage, and so we're extremely driven and obsessed with customers. To a point where we just like everyone's a little sketched out about the industry starting off as like automatic drone stations. Is that even a thing? And so sometimes we have to like really encourage it, show them everything behind it, and really build a strong relationship. And sometimes there's ones where like I just had to be convincing of just like, look, this thing it solves your problems because we have this capability, we've thought of everything. You don't need to be so hesitant, or you just need to know that there's a way to make it work. And I was this convincing because there was a couple times when we weren't going to meet payroll if I didn't make the sale. So I literally had to understand exactly what the customer was looking for, exactly the criteria that the product needed to meet, and exactly how I could build it the most efficiently. And that's basically how Hextronics has been such a strong name, at least getting started from a group of kids out of a garage or out of a small beaten up facility, is because we're just completely like reliant and driven on some of the most exciting customers in the whole world. And that's what I don't know, I freaking love it.
Yeah. So I know, like you said, you're bootstrapped. Was that a conscious decision, or did you have to decide, like, or do you just not have access to resources?
Well, I mean, yeah, I was trying to like be a YC guy for a while, right? I was trying to like be, hey, all of like the stories that they write in the newspapers or the stories that they have online is like, oh, you pitch your idea and you pitch it and you keep pitching it, and then eventually like you just get funding. But a lot of times it's like we just hit walls. We would go to these either pitch competitions, or we just straight up like have a cold call with some like VC group or something. And first of all, I was somewhat of just a kid, and they would rip me to shreds. And then they would say, oh, and your hardware, ew, like
it's garbage.
Yeah, what are you talking about? And it's like, wait, and you actually have these things like deployed? I don't know. You can go, I'll talk to you like never see a kid, basically. And so I don't know if it was like a completely conscious choice, or just the fact that we were overlooked by many people.
How many people said no?
Oh, well over like 100 different people. But it just became like kind of a given at some point. But I'm just like, I'm just gonna have fun with this.
You're just like, fuck it, I'll just like build.
Yeah, screw it. I'm just gonna build. You know what? We've got some customers that freaking believe in us. So you know who we're gonna go to fundraise from? Our customers by selling them products. That's how we're gonna fundraise. So that's exactly what we did.
Yeah. Okay. So you had a situation, I don't know, was it the first or second year, where you basically were running very close to the line, and you had multiple situations where you literally did not have enough money to meet payroll and like had to close a deal. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was a little too common than I'd like to. There's many nights where I did not sleep because of this. Almost it was like almost 1 to 2 nights every week. I would pull an all-nighter because I was like, I have to figure this out, or I have to build this thing so that we can ship it like tomorrow or ship it this week. And then there was somewhere, okay, we've got a customer in town. always be closing.
Always
we
be
gotta
closing.
close. We gotta figure out how to make it work, how to bring this deal through, and really make something happen that will lead to like future developments. Because the thing is sure, like somebody buys a product. Well, they not only buy the product, they buy into you. They buy into your solution, they buy into your team, and they buy into what's possible with the product. And a little bit they buy into, well, what is this product gonna say about me? That's really where we built some of the strongest relationships with people that use Hextronics to build something stronger or build something on top of it. And so it's not just like, hey, I'm gonna buy this at the store and then be done. No, this is something that like changes fundamentally how people interact with the world, or how even people think about the world. And then they start to go around and be someone evangelists of this new mentality of like, hey guys, there's like the sky up there. We can just always be in the sky looking at the world and understanding what's in the world and managing it and actually changing it and developing it way faster than we could if we were just looking around, sitting around every day. It just fundamentally changes how you think about things if you come at it from that point of view. But yeah, there's one spot in Miami that I love to bring people to I don't know if it's to close them or it's to show them a little bit more about what we're doing. And so I took a couple of people to Sugar. It's a great spot. It's on like the 40th floor in Brickell City Center. It's not too tough to get in. But yeah, then that's where you got a pretty good view of everything. So it's kind of like you're a drone up there. And yeah, that's where you kind of just talk about like the real things that matter. And hey man, if we want to move forward together, we got to do this. It's the only way. And it's going to make better products. It's going to make you understand a lot more about what it takes. And all in all, it's going to bring you to a new level of just thinking. That's that's just the reality of what it is we're building.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. How do you think about, like, how do you decide to iterate, or what's your process of iteration?
So iterating a lot based on, well, yeah, more and more now based on a set of solid requirements, engineering requirements that, hey, this physical thing needs to move from here to there. Not, hey, let's make something absolutely crazy to fling this thing around and just make it happen and look super cool. Because I mean, yeah, it can look super cool from the outside if it's a product, you know, but the inside needs to be functional, firm, strong, clean, and just
work a million times.
Yeah, work a million times. And so once we got into that mentality, we really had a lot of success of like, okay, now we know we can make it work once in this really repeatable way. Now can we make it work 1,000 times or 10,000 times doing the exact same thing? And doing that, that's a lot of really how we do have some advantage, is because, yeah, we started off just launching these products into the field, testing them with places kind of close to Hextronics, and actually like putting cycles and numbers on them in their true operating environment, so that we could tighten up that feedback loop. And a lot of things failed that I would not have thought would fail. Like I thought, like just growing up, like, oh, motor, it's a freaking motor. These things, like they've been using motors for like dozens of years, you know, these things gotta just be bulletproof by now. But then once in a while, like we just get to swap number like 400 and then the motor would just break. And I was like, motors can break? Like it worked 400 times. Why is 401 busted now? And that's like the worst feeling to have when it, like you have a drone station like somewhere across the planet. And it's like, yep, we just did like our 401st swap, and now one of the critical components inside the machine, way deep in there, you got to undo like 20 screws to get to it. Yeah, that one failed. And I'm just like, hearing this on the call, like, I really hope it wasn't that component. And they're like, it's that component. I was like, all right, here's what we're going to do. And I just would like iron out everything of just like, okay, we got to take all these parts out. We're going to ship you a couple more extra things. They're going to go right in there and it's going to work. And the thing is yeah, I did have to learn that 400 cycles, because when I started off, I was like, oh, 200 cycles, we're done. Like things good. But no, we've got to keep going. Right now, the unit over there, we call her Shirin, named after a Malaysian sprinter. I don't know, one of the customers suggested it. She's just about to pass 20,000 cycles in a row, fully cooking. And so that's what we've learned to do over time, so that we put stress all over the machine. Every component goes in and out and up and down, and through the full cycle, so that we can see what breaks first.
Yeah.
And I think now more and more we're going to have to start putting bets of like, all right, what's going to break first? The bearing, the motor, the belts, the circuit board, what's going to break? And yeah, we have learned an incredible amount from that.
Yeah. How did you decide when the right time to hire people was? Because you're like skating on, you don't have a whole lot of money, so you're very constrained on resources. How do you decide that?
Well, typically, like if we close a deal that we knew, like there's no way I could do all of this. There's no way like just a couple of us can like actually develop that thing and produce it in enough time to make it happen. So, I mean, we've got a great team of technicians here, some of the best in the world, that are working every day to build and assemble these systems. And it comes to the point where getting started, it was like me building every single system until 2 a.m. the night before shipping, and then running it through cycles just to make sure that it was good to go. And there's no way I can do that now with the volume that we're pushing out of here, and with all of the other things happening in development and just in kind of support and growth. And so it really comes down to, okay, obviously we don't have the money for these people to be here for like a year doing nothing. So we close this deal. We need people to build this. Now we need to go get another one, and then another one, and another one. Because that's the way that we can continue to sustain the people that we have here building this incredible technology. And the thing is it's all momentum, because you can close a great deal and then you'd be so focused on like, oh, we did this great deal, now let's hire a couple of people, make some new stuff. And then by the time it's like 2 or 3 months later, you're like, we need to close another deal
or else we run out of money.
Exactly. So it's really good behind consistently having the energy behind the sales machine. And I mean, starting off, obviously we're making drone stations that are like somewhat outlawed by almost every country, because you got to get all these different approvals to be able to use them. So basically the only people that can use them are like the governments of these countries, or people that like know exactly how to navigate the FAA, or to cowboys. Cowboys that just don't.
Are they a great customer?
Yeah, they're a great customer because they just don't care.
They just don't care.
They're like, FAA can come get me. And I'm like, we don't recommend that.
No, yeah, you just have a little thing that says, our customers agree that they will abide by all of the laws.
Exactly.
Obviously.
Yeah, obviously.
Obviously. Yeah, interesting. I would be curious, how do you sell into governments?
Well, it's definitely a process. And right now, governments are just learning about, I'd like to say they're learning, but they're trying to understand a bit more about how to really utilize this technology in spots like, warfare is one of them, but really outside of warfare in more civilian and just urban environments. Because we started a lot commercially, where we know, hey, we've got to map this whole like field of crops every day to get that growth, or we've got to map this construction project or this pipeline or this railroad. We need to capture all of this information. But when it comes to governments, it's really the stakeholders in the governments that manage all of these different projects. And the thing with government is there's people so specialized in these different areas, but the communication is really like abysmal in some regard, where, hey, I'm managing the parks, but I have no idea what like sewer and water are doing right next to me, or I have no idea what like roadway design's doing over here. But I'm the parks director, so I know what's happening right in this tiny little area. But I don't have access to too much funding, right? But cumulatively, with urban environments especially, every single one of those people is a stakeholder to this kind of more
larger thing.
Larger thing that can bring more information to the critical stakeholders that really could use it. But it takes like the large people up top and the people that manage all of this stuff to really understand fundamentally all of the different aspects. Because some people just think, it's a cool, like a drone, like I could film like a cool marketing video for this bicycle or whatever. Like, what am I going to use a drone for in the city? Well, the thing that's really going, and the thing that's kicking everything off in my opinion, for kind of complete urban, beyond visual line of sight flight, where there's drones flying around all the time, doing stuffs like, I don't know, scanning construction projects, doing all these different things, doing drone delivery more at scale. It does start off with things that need it the most. And the things that need it the most that government applies to is in first response. Drone as a first responder is definitely the way for drone in a box industry to grow in America, and I think pretty much anywhere in the world, for it to grow throughout the government or as a part of the government.
Or that's like your beachhead, and then you kind of like expand outwards.
Exactly. Well, it's the group where really drones do provide some of the most critical information possible. That's extremely valuable and something that you can only do otherwise with a helicopter that costs maybe 10x the amount of like,
or maybe even 100
drone flights.
Yeah. So you've been learning throughout this entire process. What is your strategy for learning? And then like, who have you learned from thus far?
Oh gosh. Yeah, I used to think that all learning was just school. But I learned a lot more outside of school. School definitely helped me like force myself to learn something that maybe I didn't want to, but I needed to. And that did end up becoming helpful, and like learning about like microelectronics and things like that. That was all just online. I'd say Google, YouTube is some of my favorite teachers. I like a couple YouTube channels like Real Engineering, or like Lessix, like Learn Engineering Science and something else, or even things about just like, typical like YC interviews, things like that have been helpful, at least from a business or like a startup mentality point of view.
Who's been the most helpful person from YC to you?
I think Seibel. I think Michael Seibel. Yeah. Just because of how like just straight up he is. He's just straight to the point, no BS. Like, no, you're an idiot. You should be actually thinking about the problem, or like you should be thinking about where's the problem. Like, don't just try to do something that's not the main thing. Always focus on the main thing, because it's like your main quest. Any little thing that you add to that magnifies everything else.
Yeah.
So that's something that I've definitely learned. But I mean, there's a couple. There's a couple of just like teachers in school. Some of my favorite mentors were actually like startup mentors at the different schools. One of them was like a science teacher or a math teacher in my high school, Ms. Trujillo, Dr. Ginas, or Miss Marin, or just a wide variety of high school teachers that just inspired me and challenged me that, hey, look, I've been an A student like all the time. Like typically I'm just like getting A pluses in every class. I'm just a freaking nerd. Like I couldn't not do my homework. And they were the best, because they were teachers that, even though I was an A student and like doing all this good stuff in school and doing everybody's homework and then all my friends' homework too, or whatever, they would challenge me even more. And they would just say like, well, like you haven't even thought about this yet or that. And that's really what helped me kind of continue to take more steps into, I don't know if it's the darkness, but more steps into areas that I had no idea about, or more areas where I was uncomfortable being in. And then a lot from Georgia Tech. Probably some of the biggest help I got was when I was getting into this phase of like, you know what I'm gonna do? If I'm gonna do something, I'm gonna do something crazy and do it all the way. And so Raul Saxena, he was probably one of the greatest mentors that I relied on. I don't know if he knows how much I relied on him, or how much I sought out his help in times when I was just like really struggling. But he's been with me a lot of the way since like I was making the robot delivery system or whatever. And then I actually met some really great peers that I've learned from. So at Georgia Tech, there was a bunch of nerds, right? There are nerds everywhere. And probably a couple of the favorite nerds that I've learned the most from have to have been in electronic and mechanical design, as well as some material science. But I remember bumping into this one guy, Ben, in the middle of the electrical engineering lab or whatever. And I was building the waiter robot, right? And I had these like 2170 cells that I had like in a pack together, and I wanted to recharge them because like the ears of the robot would brush up against these contacts that would charge the batteries. when the robot was waiting in line for the food to be loaded. And I'm just like, hey, like, I want to make sure my batteries get charged right. And he looked at me and he was so happy. He's like, you're like the first person who's ever cared about having batteries charged in like all of like undergraduate Georgia Tech, having the batteries charged properly. Because I was using like a BMS, a battery management system or whatever, and I connected him. And he actually helped me spot weld together a lot of the battery packs. And he actually helps us build some of our circuit boards today. And yeah, he's a crazy guy, crazy great guy. I get along with him really well. And he's taught me a lot about what you can do with a ton of like microelectronic machines, like all put together. And then another one is Nick. Nick works here, Nick Molka. He's probably, he's my Superman, bro. And he's a lot of the kind of design capability behind me and with me to really put the reliability and like detailed touches in the machines that we have across the world, and the machines that we're building, and the machines that we're inventing. And I really couldn't have done a lot of this stuff without him. And I've learned a tremendous amount from him. Maybe not too much in mechanical design, a little bit in mechanical design, but a lot of just in energy and support and fucking love behind the product. So yeah, I guess teachers, I learned from all over the place. You know, the internet, my friends, my sister, my family. I'd say, yeah, my dad was probably one of my greatest teachers. I take a lot of his advice, but a lot of times I'm just like, let me just do my own thing.
Let me cook.
Let me cook, dude. Like, I know how you see it, but let me cook, bro. I promise it makes sense to somebody, you know?
Yeah. Okay. So you mentioned like cold calling and having some success with that. What's the most surprising thing someone has said yes to through a cold call?
There is this one. So I mean, we do get a lot of contact us. And so, I mean, I don't know if a cold call from a contact us really counts, or maybe a cold call, from some connection. But there was actually this, like, we cold called this, like, Billionaire. This, like, Billionaire's, like, group, and it's, like, because he's got houses all over the place, right? And we're like, I bet this guy needs drone security. So we cold call him, and we're like, yo, like, let me demo this for you, bro. Like, you might need it. And he's like, yeah, actually, I've been thinking about this, and I might want one. So, yeah, I cold call him, and I'm just like, what if I give you a demo at your place? And he's like, sounds cool. Pull up. And so I was like, all right. So now I just have to tell everybody here, it's like, yeah, now I'm giving a demo to a Billionaire next week, guys. So this drone station's got to be extra fresh, okay? This drone station's got to be nuts. So yeah.
Did he buy it?
We're still working on it. We're still working on him. It's looking like the order's magnified to something bigger. But yeah, we got a ton of interest, and we got some customer validation.
Nice. Okay, so you actually, I don't know at what point in the journey this was, but you had an offer to, maybe it was just verbal, but you had an offer to sell the company for like $15 million. What was it like getting that offer, or even if it was verbal? And like, why did you decide to turn it down? Yeah,
well, okay, I mean, going into it, and I mean, you read all of these books, or you see like, oh, he offered me this and I said no, or whatever. And so I kind of expected at some point somebody was going to say, hey, dude, what's your number? And I was at the point where I'm just like, I'm not going to be satisfied with whatever number anybody shows me right now, because I know that I can do a ton more. So it was an insane compliment. It was amazing, I don't know, justification and confidence building for me, just saying like, hey dude, I'll take everything. I'll take like your whole thing. And I was just like, okay, great, bro. Hold on to that. Let me cook a little bit more. I got things to do. Really appreciate it. This would solve all my problems and I could pretty much retire. But I got more to do. Yeah, just stick around and let's continue to support each other. And I think that there's going to be a ton of growth in the industry, and you're going to want me to be as more motivated as possible to cook up some of the best shit in the world. So I'm going to only do that for this guy, and for the team. Not for the man.
Yeah, not for the man.
Not for the man.
Okay. So you have this idea for, if you're all right with talking about this, you have this idea for this thing called Hex Tower, which is going to cost like $600 million. What was the inspiration for Hex Tower, and what is it?
Yeah, so Helix Tower might be called Helix or something. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, every cool like store, there's always got to be a cool tower involved somewhere, like something crazy.
Is it like Tony Stark?
Kind of like, yeah, Stark Tower. You know, I mean, everybody's got a crazy tower with like stuff in it. So, you know what? Like, I always like grew up thinking like, how hard is it to like make a skyscraper? Like how
hard can it be?
Can anybody do this? Like they're all over the place when you go to the city. Like people just make this. Somebody's got to know how to do it, you know? There's got to be something behind just like the idea behind a skyscraper. So I was just like, yeah, well, if we're building a skyscraper, it's going to be somewhat hexagonal, you know? And so the idea for it's like a cascading, like spiraling hexagon in some regard that goes up like 70, 80 floors. So I got it quoted at about 600 million, all in.
All in?
Not including property. So the property is going to be extra.
Might be another.
Yeah, so we're tacking on a couple extra things that we're going to have. So it might, aiming for, I think 800 is going to be the target, but definitely under $1 billion. Okay, so we got to keep it under $1 billion.
You gotta keep it under $1 billion. Why do we gotta keep it under $1 billion?
Just because it's gonna be the model for the next one.
Gotta be the model for the next one.
So I mean, if we make first one in Miami, I mean, where else everybody's gonna need a Helix Tower after that? Because the Helix Tower is the most incredible piece of a cityscape ever created. It's an innovation. It's basically a startup in a tower. It's a tower that is a startup. Like the whole building, it's like got residential, it's got business, it's got maker space, it's got retail space, it's got some crazy restaurants scattered through. I'm thinking we're gonna need one restaurant where you have to dress as a Viking in order to get in, and another one where like maybe you gotta dress like in the 1920s, like Thomas Shelby or something from like Peaky Blinders. I don't know, some classy stuff. And then of course at the top, it's gonna be one of the coolest rooftop bars you've ever seen. I'm thinking like seating on the exterior, right? But then on top, so like there's stairs that go up to the top. Of course, the seating on the exterior has the glass walls in, so you can see it while you're having a nice dinner at the sunset. But then the top is like it's just like a bar. It's like a bar that's like an island in the top where you can't fall off the edge because you're in the middle, but you get a full 360 panoramic view of the entire city. And I haven't been in one of those, but I think somebody's got to make it. It might be a little bit windy. But that's the price you got to pay.
That's the price you got to pay. Okay. Final question. What's the hardest thing you've overcome?
So I do a lot of like physical stuff, like running and biking, and like I've done like marathons, Ironman. I've done a half Ironman. Okay. And some of the marathons didn't necessarily go as planned, but yeah, I love running. There was some like about the same time when I was just like, you know what, I'm gonna freaking be somebody or whatever. It's like, you know what's like doing a marathon can't be that hard. And so I trained for a marathon in 3 months. After the furthest I ever ran before that was like, I think 3 miles or 5 miles in a row. I think I walked 5 miles one time. And then I said, you know what, we're doing a marathon. Me and my boy Ron, and he was a runner, so he knew how to run. And I was freaking crazy just because of how lame I was at running. So actually it was about 2 months. I signed up for the marathon, I think in February, and the run was in March, like near the end of March. And so we spin up this training regimen, and he's like, well, according to this training regimen, we need to run 9 miles tomorrow. So I'm like, all right, let's do it. So through this process, I pretty much almost died at every single one of these runs. There was one run where we were supposed to be hitting 19 miles. I think it was like maybe 3 or 4 weeks before the race. And at like mile 11 or 12 or something, I black out. I black out in the middle of the run. I was so tired and dehydrated or something. And Ron tells this story better than I do. But I was apparently like, I was like wobbling around as I was running, and then I like walked over to like this fence, and I grabbed onto this fence, and I was completely blackout. I was basically like super drunk, like kind of like the way I was expressing myself apparently. And I was just like, Ron, I invented this thing. I invented this crazy thing. I have no memory of this at all. And then apparently I just like faint. And then Ron's like, oh shit, like this guy's about to die. So he calls an Uber. He's like, I'm just gonna Uber him to like the nearest hospital. And then like the Uber comes, they try to get me in the car. I am just like absolutely a dead body, so they can't move me. So Uber's like, shit, I'm gonna go get him a Gatorade. I'll be right back. So then the Uber cancels. When you cancel an Uber, it's like a Hydra, like calls another one. So this Uber is now on a side quest, and they just called another one to come get me. That Uber has the same thing happens. I'm gonna go get this guy a Gatorade, be right back. So now this happened like 4 times. So now there's like 4 Uber drivers going to different spots, getting me a Gatorade. They all come back at the same time. And of course they called the ambulance. Somebody had the idea to call the ambulance. Ambulance comes, all of the Uber drivers come back simultaneously. There's like 5 things of Gatorade. I black in once I realize that like once the ambulance comes and gets me, and they bring out the stretcher or whatever. I black in, and there's just all this Gatorade. And I was like, I'm just
what the hell is going
somehow
on?
obscenely conscious, and I'm just like, yeah, everyone just like back up. I'm gonna hurl. And so I just like go up, like hurl in the bushes, and I'm like, all right, you can take me away. I just somehow like snap back in. Yeah, that was pretty hard. And then after that run, I did another one, and Ron's just like, dude, there's no way we're even gonna try this marathon if you don't finish this run. It was a 20-miler. So we're running. It's a great, beautiful day. I get to mile 15. I'm like, dude, this has been breakfast. And then I'm like getting to mile 18, and I'm like in the pit of hell. I'm like the bottom of the pit of hell, and like my whole body wants to explode. It's like, all right, only 2 miles left. I'm like, 2 miles left, dude? So I like run around, I do a mile. I think my hand's so sweaty, it like auto calls like my mom, I think, because it was like my saved contact or whatever. Auto calls her a couple times, and like my mom's like, oh, is this guy okay? And yeah, she was like, she figured it out. But then when it was like a mile left, and this is crazy, I don't know how to explain this really well, but a mile left, I basically had to run from, there's like on campus, there's the CRC and like the training route, like the track, and then there's like the dorms. So I had to run basically from the training route back to the dorms. That was the last mile. Right before that mile, my calves cramped up so bad, like I felt like my calf was gonna fall off or snap. And so we get going, and I'm just like, I got a mile left. I'm just gonna eat it. I'm just gonna ride through this insane pain in my legs no matter what, because if I don't finish this 20, I'm not gonna be able to do
25.
Yeah, the marathon. And so I keep going, and I get over this hill, and there's about like a quarter of a mile left, and I somehow like have the craziest like mental trip I've ever had, where like I see, and yeah, this is gonna sound really weird, but I like see like all generations of like my family, and like all my grandparents, and all my like parents, brothers and sisters, and all these different things, and I can just like see where all of them kind of got distracted in life and didn't reach their potential. And I'm just like freaking out on this run. I'm like, what did I take, dude? What was in the Gatorade? And so then I finish it, I cross the line, and I just like die right on the floor. I don't die, but I just like freaking pass out. And it's like 2 p.m. on like a Thursday in the middle of campus. So everyone's just like, what the hell happened to this guy? But yeah, I think that run is probably one of the hardest runs I've ever done. And then I did the marathon. Somehow the marathon was easier. I don't know how. It was like 26, and I got a pretty good time, and I never stopped.
You never stopped?
I found like stopping, it's just like, oh, I can stop. I'll just keep stopping. And then you don't make it. But if you're like, nope, I just can't stop. So then you keep going. And yeah, I also do have, then I did a couple more after that. I did a half Ironman. And then before all that, I did get a black belt in jiu-jitsu and like taekwondo and kickboxing.
The three separate disciplines.
Yeah, well, yeah, it was mixed martial arts. The primary discipline was in jiu-jitsu. And
Wow.
I did that for 10 years since I was like 6 years old.
So you're cracked.
Or based.
Or
whatever one.
both, maybe. All right, Curt. Thank you so much.
It's been a
Appreciate
pleasure.
it.
Thank you.